That's a new thing I do on my channel now, and I don't know why I keep doing it. Let's just control ourselves for 2 seconds. Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Harmony Nice, and today I am going to be doing another unsolved mystery case, I guess. This case is a little bit different from my other cases that I've previously done on my channel. As most of you guys probably are aware, I am more primarily focusing on occult-based crimes or like mysteries to do with like witchcraft and paranormal cases more than I'm going to be focusing on missing persons cases. I just feel like so many people do those videos, but I find them so interesting, so I prefer to kind of do ones that relate to my channel a little bit more. And I absolutely love the classic kind of haunted house tales and things like that, so I thought this one would be absolutely perfect for that. And like I said, this kind of story is more primarily based around the family than it is the house, but the house is kind of where all of the kind of strange things went down. So this is the unsolved case of the Lemp family curse. Case is slightly odd because I feel like it's quite different. It may not be like as to everybody's taste because there's kind of no resolution to this. This is just like a tragic story of what happened to this family and how it resulted in being like a very well-known paranormal place. I will be doing more occult unsolved mysteries on a regular basis, so this isn't really your thing. I will be doing ones like, you know, Who Left Bella in the Witch Elm and things like that. Next month I'm gonna try to start doing like 2 of these a month. It's a lot of like history information, things like that, but I really enjoyed researching it. So yeah, it's a very complicated story, so I guess we're just going to get on with it. So the Lemp family mansion was built in Missouri in the United States of America in the early 1860s at 3322 Den Minnell Place. The construction of this house started in the early 1860s, but according to records, it wasn't actually finished until the late 1860s. Even though there are kind of debates about when this house was built and when the construction was finished, that's kind of the most accurate time scales of what I've got for this house. It does get very complicated and the research on this is not the best. So the house was built by a man called Jacob Fikert, or I'm gonna butcher this, Fikert or something like that. So Jacob Fikert, who is the father of William Lemp's wife, Julia Lemp. So William and his family is where this kind of strange curse slash story starts. William J. Lemp Sr. was born in Germany in 1835, but moved to America after his father, Johann Adam Lemp, decided that he wanted to move to America to kind of like make it in America. So Johann and his family, including his son William, moved to Missouri and opened up a grocery shop in 1838, which sold beer and like other groceries and things like that, but primarily the beer was extremely popular within this grocery shop, to the point of it was at such high popular demand that by 1840 Johann decided to close the grocery store and just open up a brewery instead. It was so popular. So he established a Western brewery in 1860, and Johann Adam Lemp became the leader of brewing in St. Louis at the time. So he was like the biggest guy to open this brewery, and it was such a popular thing. I also can't say the word brewery, by the way. Brewery. Johann unfortunately died in 1862, where his son William Sr. decided to take over the company. William was in general like a very intelligent, smart man. He had a super strong head on him. He went to the St. Louis University and he did really well at university. He also joined the army and like gained a pretty good rank, orderly sergeant in the United States Army. So he did really well. He was extremely talented and very hardworking. And when he actually took over this brewing business after his father died, it flourished so much and it made so much more money than when his father was in charge. By 1877, the Lemp Brewery was named like 19th in the country or something like that. It was absolutely huge. So in general, he was a very successful man, and for that time, that was like a massive deal. And he became extremely wealthy. On December the 3rd, 1861, he married Julia Feichart, and the two would come to have 9 children altogether, but that is something that we'll get onto in a bit because that's like a large part of the story. So after his father's death, he decided to return to doing the brewery. Like I said, he became very big and very successful. He decided to start building a larger brewery and also buy and build a few more buildings in order to make this brewing company like even bigger. So he decided to build a brewery above some western caves that he'd previously been storing some beer, as well as a few other buildings for manufacturing and things like that, including the Lemp family house, where Julia's father, who was building it, completed it. And it was purchased off him, I think in 1876 or 1877. And it was used for the residence of the Lemp family as well as a brewery office. So it was like the Lemp family home as well as it being like a brewery office. So pretty much their whole entire life was this brewing company. And the brewery buildings can be seen just a short distance from the Lemp family home too. So it was like such a big part of their lives. And even a tunnel was created from the brewery to the house too. So the two, after buying the house, as they were becoming a lot wealthier, decided to put some like extravagant things within the house, including elevators. They put a ballroom, they put a cinema, a pool. They decorated it with so much luxurious art from like all over the world. And they made it super elaborate and brought in so many servants and kitchen staff, and they made the basement into like a huge kitchen area and a huge dining area. So the two had a lot of children, and it's this is where it kind of gets a bit complicated, so just bear with me. So firstly, they had a child called Louisa Lemp, then they had a child called Anna Lemp, then William J. Lemp, which was, for the sake of this video, we're going to call Billy. William is his father's name as well, so obviously William Jr. we're going to call Billy for the sake of this video. Louis Lemp, Charles Lemp, Friedrich Lemp, Hilda Lemp, Edwin Lemp and Elsa Lemp. So a lot of children. So Louisa Lemp unfortunately died as an infant, and the records for this they're not really that obvious. Unfortunately, the only kind of records that we've got on her death are the fact that she died at infancy. So this can mean that she died like straight after birth, or she died as an infant, but it's not actually documented where she died, whether she died in the Lemp house or not, or whether she had died outside the house. I expect it was before the house. Either way, she died at a very young age. So it's believed that William was an extremely loving and caring man, but he did find the whole stress of the business extremely hard on him, and it took a severe toll on his stress to the point of where he couldn't really deal with how much money was coming in and also how big the business had got, and he got very stressed and very overwhelmed really quickly. And he found family life extremely hard as well, even though he was an extremely caring, loving man. He also definitely had favorites amongst his children. The absolute favorite of his was his son called Friedrich Lemp, which was his like golden child. And even though he wasn't the oldest boy, he really wanted Friedrich to take over the brewing company once he had passed. So that was kind of like his plan. Even though his older son Billy was next in line, he thought that Friedrich was more capable of taking over this company than Billy was. So the business did really well, and it was doing well for absolutely years and years. And the children had kind of grown up, and some of them were still living in the house, and some of them had moved out and kind of gone onto their own lives. But unfortunately, in 1901, William Sr.'s favorite son, Friedrich, apparently started to suffer severe kind of health issues very suddenly. Some sources say that he had suffered severe health issues his whole life, and some of them said that the severe health issues came on very quickly. At the time, they kind of said maybe that he just needed a break, so he decided to go to California with his wife to take a break. And he said that he started to feel better, and as soon as he reported to them that he felt better, he passed away under mysterious circumstances. These mysterious circumstances, people basically back in the day would kind of say that people would die of mysterious circumstances when it just couldn't be determined. It could probably be determined pretty easy now. But back then it was very hard to determine things, so they used to just put it down as heart failure. So his like cause of death was heart failure, but really the circumstances of what Friedrich died are very unknown. So Friedrich died at the age of 28, and William Sr. took this extremely hard. He started to go into like a severe depression, and he found work and family life extremely hard, and he seemed to lose interest in his business and his family life and his work life and everything like that. He just completely lost interest and became very unhappy. And then for around 3 years, William kind of went through the notions, and he was up and he was down, until unfortunately one of his closest friends, who was also called Friedrich, who was like a part of the brewing dynasty sort of thing. He unfortunately died as well. And that was who Friedrich was named after as well, apparently. I read that on one source, I'm not sure if that's 100% true. And apparently William sank into a further depression where he was so depressed the whole time, and he was apparently like a ghost, just like a cold vessel, because he just could not deal with what had happened to his son and to his best friend. On February the 13th in 1904, William was seen going to work and sitting at his desk and apparently staring into space and just kind of making weird strange motions with his hands and looking around the room. And William went upstairs to his bedroom and was alone in the house completely, par a few servants, and shot himself in his bed in his room, which is obviously very sad. Back then, mental health was just like not a thing. Like it just, nobody acknowledged that it existed and that people needed help. So obviously his son Friedrich could not take over the company as he passed away too. So his eldest son Billy was next in line to take over the brewing company. And the brewing company was still very successful, and some of the family members still lived at the house. And I believe at this point Billy moved in to the Lemp family home so he could run the business a lot better from there than he would at the current house that he was living in. So Billy married a lady called Lillian Lemp, or somebody known as the Lavender Lady, which apparently is one of the infamous ghosts that is known to be at this house. And she was apparently called that because she was always dressed in like bright, elaborate lilacs and purples and things like that. But things only got worse after Billy took over the company, as unfortunately William's wife Julia got ovarian cancer and died very quickly in the same spot as her husband died just a year prior. And apparently this took a huge toll on the oldest son Billy, as well as having to manage the company as well. According to the kind of story and everything and the people surrounded these people at the time, all of the children were very different to their father, in a sense that especially Billy was not hardworking at all, and that it just seemed like money had gone to their heads basically. And apparently he struggled massively being a businessman, and he apparently would just party all the time and just a bad businessman and husband in general. And he used to be very unfaithful to his wife, and in general just didn't know how to manage the company or his personal life. So Lillian actually filed a divorce in 1908 on the grounds of mistreatment and desertion. She claimed that Billy brought other women into her home and entertained them in her private spaces while keeping her on a leash due to his jealousy too. And Billy apparently accused Lillian of wearing these bright colours as a ploy for attention and using bad language and things like that, which is just fucking hilarious. And apparently this divorce was like such a huge deal, as they were kind of like local celebrities, and it was very rare to get divorced at this time. And in the end, the divorce was granted, and Billy even lost primary custody of his son, which again for the time was extremely rare. So Billy's next bit of misfortune, as unfortunately the brewery failed to turn a profit that year, and apparently Billy got extremely bitter and he had a massive dejected attitude towards the business and kind of lived for the party life and things like that. And he just became a very hated and hateful person in general, and he made such little effort towards the brewery that it was obvious that the brewery just shouldn't have been in his hands at all. Lots of people said that the children of William Sr. were so spoiled, and they were basically just spoon-fed the company, that there was no way the company was going to succeed after William Sr. died, as that hard work ethic had just not been passed on to the children, and they had like no fight to them at all when business got tough. Meanwhile, while this was all happening, Billy's sister Elsa Lemp lived in a mansion in the central west end of St. Louis in Missouri in the March of 1920. So Elsa was probably the most eccentric out of all the children, but she was also probably the most friendly and well put together according to people. She was incredibly rich, and that made her incredibly eligible for a woman at the time because of her wealth. And not only that, everybody said that she was so friendly and so happy and so lovely and caring, and just had like a lust for life in general, and she was so loved by everybody. She was also a suffragette, so she took part in the suffragette movement, and she was also a spiritualist. She conducted lots of seances at the Lemp house on a regular basis because it was a great place to kind of gather and get everybody in one spot, because it was such like a well-known kind of communal space. So she married a man, and this is where stuff gets odd. She married a man called Thomas Wright, who from the start, everybody said seemed like a very, very odd couple. She obviously loved Thomas Wright a lot, but he was very against her kind of spiritualist lifestyle, and it was a very, very taboo thing at the time anyway, so especially for like such a wealthy woman. So lots of people kind of shunned down on it, including her husband. And he was unfaithful to her on many occasions, of which Elsa did not let him get away with. Honestly, Elsa deserves a story on her own. And she actually divorced him as well. Under the terms, apparently he was horrible and cold to her, and they were divorced for probably about a year or so, and actually the pair reconnected just a short while after, and they decided to travel to lots of other places, and then they decided to remarry. But only 11 days after their marriage, Elsa was suffering from indigestion and heartache, and also suddenly a wave of severe depression just came along, and apparently it kind of seemed like maybe she was having second thoughts about her remarriage to Thomas, because it kind of seems like when you get stressed you get really bad headaches and really bad nausea. So it looked like she was maybe having rethoughts about her marriage. But apparently after they were married, she was awake most nights for these 11 days. So Thomas claimed, and when I say Thomas claimed, I mean he claimed, that after these 11 days, Elsa woke up one morning and she said that she felt a lot better, but she wanted to remain in her bed. Thomas agreed that it was the best thing to do, and apparently he went into their ensuite bathroom, went to go turn the tap on. He went back to the room to get a change of underwear, and Elsa was still sitting in her bed fine, but again just still chilling in her bed. And then he went back into the bathroom, got into the bath, and apparently moments after he got into the bath he heard what sounded like a gunshot, and he called for her, but apparently she didn't answer. So he got up out of the bath and went into the bedroom, and all he could see was apparently what looked like Elsa was looking at him, but she was lifeless, and that there was a revolver laying on the sheets next to her, and that she had been shot and killed. There's actually a whole conspiracy about Elsa in general and what actually happened to Elsa, because the whole kind of everything that happened to this, it does basically put two and two and makes it sound like Thomas killed her. Or the whole thing is just very, very sketchy, how they didn't really get along. They got remarried only a few days after. She was like stressed and panicking, and some people said that she could have been stressed and panicking because she was fearing for her safety and she couldn't just rush to get a divorce again. Or people were saying that she could have been poisoned, or people said, and that could have led her to be like hysterical, or people were saying that she was just so like anxious and things like that that she could have actually committed suicide. But with the whole everything that looks like it does look like there was some foul play in there, especially as Elsa was known as being somebody that was extremely like lovely and full of life and loved to travel and things like that. It just seems very odd that she would kill herself. And apparently the family also did not believe that this was an accident either. Billy, who when found out about Elsa's death, said that it was classic Lemp family behaviour. So after a long time struggling with the company and making a loss for a few years, in 1922, Billy decided to tell the news that he was going to be selling the brewery company. And soon, on December the 29th of that year, he sold it for 8 cents to the penny. And as he did on that day, he dismissed his secretary, and in the Lemp family house in the office, he shot himself in the heart. Now, on a side note, and this doesn't really have anything to do with the house or anything, but just like a little bit more of unluckiness for this family. Following the kind of Lemp curse is believed, and I will get more into the curse in a minute. Billy had a son called William III, of course, and apparently William III tried to bring back the Lemp beer name, and he really, really struggled with it. He attempted to resurrect it on his father's country estate, but unfortunately it was short-lived and it did not work out. And the same year that he gave up on deciding to push forward at like reconciling the brewery, his wife also decided to end the marriage with them too. And apparently it was such a really, really ugly divorce, much like his father's. And soon after that, William III died of a heart attack later that year at the age of 42. So the family in general has like the worst like luck. So Anna Lemp, I couldn't find much information on. She was probably the only one that I couldn't find a bunch of information on. It's believed that she occupied the house, the Lemp family house, for a while. And then she died in 1939 of natural causes at the age of 74. She occupied the house and died in the house too. In regards of what happened to the house after that, Charles Lemp actually moved into the house too, and he was the second from youngest child. He actually decided to never marry. So Charles moved to the Lemp house with 2 of his servants and his dog, and he reportedly was an extremely grumpy, unhappy man who never really enjoyed doing like social outings, and he never really like wanted entertainment or anything like that. Unfortunately, he was described as a very sour man who was very, very angry and bitter, which I can kind of understand due to everything that kind of the tragedy that's just surrounded him. So in 1941, Charles sent a letter to a funeral home giving them explicit instructions that if he were to die, he wanted to be cremated and his body not to be bathed or changed prior to the funeral, and he wanted no funeral service or published obituary. And 8 years later, in the May of 1949, he left a note by his bed stating in it that if he is found dead, that it is no fault other than his own. And Charles unfortunately shot himself and his dog in the Lemp family mansion. He was the last Lemp to occupy the family home, and his body was found by his brother Edwin. Edwin took over the kind of management of the Lemp family home and organised kind of everything that was going to happen with the Lemp family home. And the 2 other family members did actually go on to live full long lives, and both refused to move back into the house after everything that had happened, which is very, very understandable. I'm quite surprised that Charles wanted to be there, and there was no other public records stating that either of the other children died there or anything like that, or anybody else died there. But the story does not stop there, no. So Louis Lemp died of natural causes in 1931, and Edwin actually lived to be around 90 and apparently lived a long and very, very happy life in his country retreat in Cragworld, I believe it's pronounced, and he passed away in 1970. But upon his death, it came out that apparently there was some secrets that the family were holding. Now, like every family and like every family with wealth, there seems to be some sort of weird kind of secrets to the family. Edwin in particular was very, very adamant about what was to happen when he died and the stuff from the Lemp family house, what was to happen when he died. So upon when he died, he put in a very, very strange request. So it was apparent that Edwin believed that his family was cursed because of the family heirlooms that they had in the house. Either it was because they were stolen or they had had curses put on them, but for some reason they were just bad news and the expensive, rich things in the house should be destroyed. I couldn't find much information on why he thought this or how he kind of came to think this, but basically his last request to his housekeeper was to burn and destroy all of the artwork and the family heirlooms in the Lemp family house. But when he died in 1970, Edwin actually decided to make a gift, donating 4 family portraits to the Missouri History Museum. So based on Edwin's identifications, the people in these portraits were Adam Lemp, Justine Claremont Lemp, Louise Bois Lemp, and William Lemp Sr. And all 4 of the paintings were attributed to a man called Charles Ferdinand Wilmer, a German-American painter who lived in St. Louis for much of his career, and he had lots of famous paintings of like Native Americans and bison. But when the person came to collect the portraits from the villa that had apparently been donated, there was 5 portraits there. There's so much to this family that it's just mad, so I'm just going to explain it as I understand it. So basically, there were 5 portraits, even though he said that he was going to leave 4 portraits. And firstly, some of the portraits didn't match up to who they said they were identified as. Some of them had like different features that didn't match the people that he said they were going to be. And the 5th portrait that was not promised to be there. Hello there, I'm just hopping on here to kind of explain this a little bit better, editing Harmony here. So basically, what I meant was that there was 4 portraits he said he left behind. So he only stated there was 4 portraits left behind. He stated, but there was that they were of these particular people. So, you know, the people that I mentioned before. 2 of these portraits are of one of the same people, that is Justine Claremont. And then the one that is unknown to who it is the person called Louisa Bois Lemp, or whatever her name is, Louise Bois Lemp. That person doesn't exist. So basically, what has happened is that he's documented this person as the painting of this woman that was left there, obviously, so that they've got that portrait, but that person doesn't exist. So There is no documents of Louisa Lemp or whatever her name is. There is no sources to state that she even exists, but there's a portrait of her. So it's like they don't know who this person is, basically. Let's get back to the video. Sorry, just hopping on here just to explain it a bit better. Was of a mysterious person of which they do not know, that apparently the portrait looked like slightly out of sorts. So it looked slightly different to the other portraits that had been left there. Like it wasn't meant to be there. It wasn't known of who it was painted of or who it was painted by. Even though it kind of looked like it could have been painted by Charles, it didn't look quite like the rest of them. Some people speculated that it was one of the family friends of the Lemp family, but some people said that it was one of the family heirlooms that was supposed to be destroyed, but wasn't for some reason, and was bought and left there. Also, the paintings are strange because none of them are signed or dated, which was just like unheard of. Like there would be no reason for a painter to do something non-signed or non-dated. And the one that claimed to be William Sr. looked absolutely nothing like him throughout any of his life. So now to this day, nobody really knows what happened in the house or why this came to be. There are lots and lots of theories behind this house because basically now the house is like notoriously known for being extremely haunted. There is well-known ghosts of Friedrich there, and also of the Lavender Lady, which is Lilium Lemp, which was the wife of Billy Sr., but even though I don't think she died there. I couldn't find any record of her dying there if she did. Again, this is such a complicated story. They open it for like haunted visits because it is like notorious for being extremely haunted, which can you blame it, really? And there is also a lot of theories to what this curse was and why it happened. I mean, obviously the first kind of obvious theory is that unfortunately mental health played a huge part of this, and the whole kind of like money doesn't buy you everything is like the most prominent and true in this specific situation. Basically, it seemed that as money overtook their lives, the stress and everything became so much more prominent in their life, and they just weren't used to being normal people, and they were so used to getting whatever they want that once that had kind of taken over, there was kind of like no hope left for them. A lot of them just suffered, and it seemed like this family was just not meant to kind of be alive. It's really really sad. But obviously the other theory is that some of the family heirlooms were stolen and cursed on people's travels. There was even like a rumor there was some like specific things had been taken. I can't remember where it said it was from, but apparently from like a well-known, at the time there was a lot of like grave robbing and robbing from like other countries that were like less wealthy. It could be a very, very large possibility that the Lemp family could have got their hands on something like that, and which is why Edwin basically said like nobody else can have these family heirlooms, they need to be destroyed. So when he died, he decided to do that. Maybe he only felt safe with them and his protection. I don't quite know why he wanted them to be destroyed when he died. It's quite an odd request. But if you have any other theories or suggestions or know any more information, as this was such a hard case to research, like every single thing they say like a different timeline for something being built or a different person dying or something like that. It's all very, very complicated and very, very odd. So now the Lemp family is basically opened as like a haunted attraction. It is extremely like well known for you be able to go like stay in it and like spend an evening there, and there are loads and loads of paranormal experiences and things like that happening in there. But because it is a haunted open house and nobody's actually lived in there since the Lemp family, it's like an obvious thing that it's not going to be, everybody's going to be like looking for stuff, so it's kind of not really known what is actually going to be accurate because it is open for like ghost tours and things like that. Many people claim to see an old man wandering around, which people believe is Charles, but there's been many paranormal investigators go there and visit there, and they claim that there is 9 spirits in the house. But yes, with that all being told, that's kind of all the information that I've got on the case. I know this one's like a bit different. I personally didn't really enjoy telling this one as much because I feel like there's kind of like no result to it. So obviously I will get back to kind of telling like occult stories and things like that too. But I really hope you enjoyed anyway. I really enjoyed researching this one. It kind of just blows my mind that like how tragic it is almost. I don't know if that's just me. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this mysterious case, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys. Bye.